this game wasn't all that close. Lamar Jackson had a few bad fumbles in there. I thought that kept it close. Zay Flowers with a nice game for the Ravens. He did look – we've talked a lot about Zay Flowers on the show. He looked dynamic, man. He looked really good with the ball in his hands, and they got the ball into his hands. He had 10 targets, and Lamar only had 22 attempts. He's
their number one receiver.
He really is. They're feeding him. It was mostly good for Zay Flowers. Really impressive debut for him. C.J. Stroud on the other side, I thought, looked like a rookie. Sacked 5 times, dropped back over 50 times. What were your thoughts on this Ravens 25-9 win here?
Yeah, so, Zay Flowers and OBJ were the two primary receivers. Those guys both played about the same and played a ton. They were the guys that were out there pretty much the entire time. And then there was a gap down to Rashad Bateman and Nelson Aguilar. Like, Bateman wasn't just 3 in that trio. He was 3/4. Like, it was actually, he was closer to Aguilar than he was either Zay Flowers or OBJ. So, and then of the two, of OBJ and Zay Flowers, Flowers had a dramatically larger workload in terms of targets. Like, OBJ had 3 targets, Zay Flowers had 10. So, yeah, I'm that's one of those ones where we're week 1, it's all about, do you stick with your priors or do you say after 1 week everything you thought was wrong? I'm already pretty close to saying we got the Zay Flowers thing wrong. Now, part of that is so many people loved him. You're kind of like already a little bit hesitant of your opinion because, that you're a minority stake here. But he looks dynamic. The stuff that he was good at plays, and they found a way to make it a heavy workload thing, which was my biggest concern coming out. It's like, that's great, but Dante Hall could do that stuff as well, and the NFL couldn't really figure out how to make use of that. Now, that was a different time, but the Ravens have already figured out how to make that a high-volume approach and sort of lead the line in this passing game. If that's a consistent thing, his movement is different. It's not Tyreek Hill, but it's like in the same vein of he operates at a different plane of quickness and speed to other people. That plays. The question was, is that enough? And so far, it has been.
Yeah, let's also not go too far, right? We're talking 9 catches, 8.7 per catch. He's definitely catching a lot of short passes and creating after the catch. The Zay Flowers concerns, remember we said if he goes to Kansas City,
right,
with how often they put him in space, he's going to cook. Well, the Ravens are doing that early on. I think the Zay Flowers concerns are always going to be downfield. And while he had a few spectacular catches at Boston College, there was other times he was just out physical. So let's see, how that evolves. But right now, really nice start for Zay Flowers and the Ravens. Lamar Jackson, like I said, 2 fumbles and a bad interception.
Bad interception, yeah.
That kind of kept Houston close. I thought Lamar was just okay as a passer. Gets sacked 4 times. I don't think it wasn't a crisp offensive performance, I don't think, across the board for the Ravens. Other thing to note, unfortunately, J.K. Dobbins, awesome touchdown, leaps into the end zone, and then he's out for the season now with a torn Achilles. The Ravens also have Marcus Williams, I believe, out for the season at free safety, and it was Tyler Linderbaum and Ronnie Stanley both leaving with injuries. That's going to be the story of the game for Baltimore. They were 10-point favorite. They win against Houston, but they get the Bengals next week.
Yeah.
A mad Bengals team, coming to Cincinnati, and it's going to be tough with those injuries.
Yeah, brutal just injury toll for them in this game. So, yeah, that was rough, particularly with J.K. Dobbins. The poor guy has already dealt with his fair share of injuries to then suffer an Achilles injury, which is about as bad as it gets for running backs, particularly quick, explosive guys like him. That's rough for him.
How about the other side? Texans offense, C.J. Stroud, as I mentioned, sacked a ton. The offensive line, it's unfortunate. I think when you see Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson doesn't have great playmakers. We mentioned Bryce Young doesn't have the best situation.
None of them are in great spots.
Yeah, and you look at Stroud right here. They just have this revolving door of offensive linemen. They traded for Josh Jones, put him at guard. Mm-hmm. You got a 28 pass blocking grade for Josh Jones at guard, where he's already been a good tackle. The right tackle situation, now George Fant gets hurt.
The problem, I don't even know if he's a right tackle. Who
came in for Fant? Because he was getting absolutely whooped every single snap. The look, C.J. Stroud's still not seeing it quickly enough, and that's a part of it. There was also a lot of plays. You've coined the phrase that nobody actually understands, but Christian Ponder syndrome.
Yeah.
Where he thinks he can outrun. Like there's a lot of plays where C.J. Stroud's trying to outrun defenders. He can't do it.
People probably understood it more when Christian Ponder was in the league.
Yeah.
It makes less sense now.
C.J. Stroud had a lot of those plays where he's trying to outrun guys that are just faster than him, and that doesn't work when guys are faster than you. So, look, the Texans' offensive line was a bit of a problem yesterday.
Yeah. It was. Like, the problem with Josh Jones is that I think he might be a left tackle only, which is fine, but you need a starting spot for that to be viable. Like, the problem is if you're not a starting left tackle, now you're a drag on the roster because teams need swing tackles. They need, versatility on the backups because you might have to come in 1, 2, 3 different spots. Josh Jones has shown in his NFL career that he's a bad guard. He doesn't look like a good right tackle either, so you might just be a left tackle only. But he's a good quality, I think, starting left tackle. The problem is he's gone from one team that already has a starting left tackle to another team that already has a starting left tackle. Like, he's been traded between two teams that cannot put him where he needs to be. And now he's just been set up to fail by getting thrown into the game at the spot we know he's not good at. So I feel for him.
He's still probably their best option at guard, but I'm saying we just think
right.
Josh
But all
Jones
that means is he's going to play a season looking like crap playing at guard, which is unfortunate for a guy who could be looking good at left tackle if they didn't already have, like, Houston's best player, arguably, is their left tackle, and they traded for a guy who needs to be playing that spot in order for him to look good. So I just feel for Josh Jones. I think he's been unfortunate in terms of where he's landed up in the NFL on two different teams now.
With the Texans' offensive line, as we're blaming them for a lot of things, you also have to give credit to the Ravens with Odafe Owe. Several pressures for him. It was probably the best he's looked in quite a while as far as rushing the passer goes. Justin Madubuike, remember Madubuike, the defensive tackle, started great last year. I think he had a great week 1, but the first 6 or 7 weeks of the season before tapering off last year, but Madubuike is off to a great start again. David Ajabu had the strip sack against third-string right tackle. So Ravens looked pretty good up front and took advantage of that mismatch, right? That's what football's all about. We sit here all offseason talking about the depth charts and the moves that people have made, and it comes down to week, there's matchups and there's a key plays here and there. I think the Ravens took advantage of a mismatch up front with the Texans.
Yeah.
Anything else on Stroud?
So Stroud, I think, had a few of those plays as well, like we talked about with the other rookies, where, you need to learn what NFL defenders are capable of. Like, he had a play where he escaped to the left side of the field, outran the defender, like didn't have Christian Ponder syndrome. He's actually got the opposite of whatever Christian Ponder syndrome is, where he's actually faster than you think he is, right? When in college, he didn't really move around much at all, but now you see him, even in the NFL, he's able to take off and outrun defensive linemen. So he did that, got to the sideline, and then sort of threw one up in the air, lofted back across his body not towards the middle of the field, but infield a little bit. Like the classic example of you don't do that in the NFL. And the reason you don't do that in the NFL is because when you think there's space there's NFL defenders that are capable of closing that space before the ball arrives. So a guy ended up breaking it up, I think. But that was a classic example of, like, that's completion in college. Like, he makes that play, and you're like, wow, look at what he can do, improvisation, all the stuff we talked about being a problem for C.J. Stroud. In college, that's a play that would make you say it's not. But in the NFL, defenders can get there before you can get the ball there. So just another version of you need to learn what you can and can't do. Overall, I thought this looked a lot like C.J. Stroud. Like, not good under pressure. When he's not under pressure, I think you got something to work with. The offensive line didn't do him any favors. I thought there were signs of life from Robert Woods. I thought he looked okay. Yeah. Noah Brown getting snaps as the third guy over Tank Dell, I think, is just bad. That just feels like willful being worse than you need to be. I mean, Noah Brown's fine as a but Tank Dell's better. Play Tank Dell more.
Let me set you up for this. If Tank Dell was playing the Zay Flowers role for the Ravens, how would that go?
For the Ravens? Oh.
Yeah, if Tank Dell was in the spot for Zay Flowers.
I mean, they're different receivers. He'd be good, but he should be. I mean, he brings different things to this Texans offense than anybody else there, and he's probably a better player across the board than Noah Brown already. I don't know why you wouldn't use him more. Like, we saw enough in preseason to say, let's give this guy a bigger role in the offense.
Yeah, it would be good to.
Let's text Bobby and make that happen.
Yeah, we tried in the preseason. That didn't work out well enough.